Class of MA first semester, and here we have 5 chapters such as hunting and gathering, pastoral nomadism, transition to agriculture, the Neolithic Revolution, and the last one is implication for the world. Here I would like to request our resource person to kindly take over the class. Sir, please start the class. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Welcome to all my dear student friends to this class of mine, that is MHI 101 and block 1. And as madam told, we have to cover a lot of topics, 5 topics in a very stipulated time. And as regards to the evolution of man, after reading this section, this book, we are expected to have a clear understanding of how the human being evolved from the hoary past, and what are the phases and difficulties he had to face during the entire course of journey. Anyway, this is very interesting as it gives us a lot of information about how and under what circumstances we reached here, and we are today, um, how we have reached to a place uh, where we are today now. So, as regards to the life began about 3,000 million years ago, and from simple cell to complex one, and and evolution of life from hoary past to, that is to the present day. And as regards to the human being, it was 55 million years ago the present human being evolved. And human evolution has two major aspects. One is biological evolution, and second is social and cultural evolution. As regards to biological evolution, here we find that how the physical features of human being developed and reached a very fine aspect as the human beings look today. Physical features means you must have seen the images or pictures shown in pictures, films, and in old books, that how the primitive men looked like. So they were a very we cannot imagine that such a primitive man could reach such a sophisticated condition. However, this was the biological evolution where physical features developed and was refined, and social and cultural evolution. Here, this is a different kind of evolution, and here we find that there are changes in the way of humans adapted to their environment and arrange their food the way they lived, etc. That means cultural revolution is regarding the culture. Culture in In present sense, in present term, we mean that the way of living. What is the way of living? The way of living is simple. What we do, our likings, our dislikings, our achievement in art, architecture, literature, and our thought, our belief pattern, and everything. The way we are, the way we intake food, and the way we react with our fellow beings, everything, the entire range of human activities come under the purview of culture. So, two major aspects. One is biological evolution, which where we find the development and refinement of physical features, and second one social and cultural evolution, where we find that how man adapted a changing pattern of way of living. Evolution of modern man. Modern man did not evolve overnight. ରାତାରାତି ମଣିଷ ହେଇନାହିଁ, ଏ ଷ୍ଟେଜରେ ପହଞ୍ଚି ନାହିଁ. So there was very primate stages like the Homo habilis, which are found in Africa, and Homo sapiens, and this Homo sapiens had a larger brain regarding the potentiality of brains. Homo sapiens had a larger brain, and 70% of Homo sapiens brain the Homo habilis had. So about 3 lakh years, we find these people in different pockets of the globe, like Asia, China, Indonesia, and other parts of the earth. So 40,000 years ago, Neanderthal man survived in Europe. Neanderthal man is a better species, a better one as compared to the earlier human forms. So, from Homo erectus to Homo sapiens, major aspect of study. କ'ଣ ନା we have changes in physical features. So, what are the features or major aspects we have to study in this topic? That changes in physical feature, regions where they lived in the globe, kind of food available, and changes in the tools. Tools means the weapons and other accessories, nature of social organization and groups they lived in, methods of communication within and outside group, disposal of the dead, and their art forms. So these are the major aspects to be studied about the primitive human being, and their art forms also is included in it. Periodization and spread of early culture on the basis of tools. The existence of human being has been periodized. That is, according to the tools they used, according to the types of the tools they used, the period of their existence has been divided into different phases. That is, the Paleolithic period, Mesolithic period, and Neolithic period. Paleolithic period means lithic means stone. Paleolithic means old stone. Then Mesolithic means it's a interim phase between Paleolithic and Neolithic period. Neolithic period is New Stone Age, and France, Germany, Spain, Ethiopia, Tanzania, Iraq, Iran, Syria, Japan, India, Pakistan, China, Philippines, etc. From all these places, we find traces or vestiges of the people belonging to different phases, primitive people different belonging to different phases of their existence, particularly the Paleolithic, Mesolithic, and Neolithic. And we have also certain evidences for that. That is fossilized bone of skull fragments. Fossilized brain means those who are buried under the earth, that is called fossilized bone of skull fragments. We cannot get the skull or the body in entirety, but we can have them in fragments. And from the study of those things, we can ascertain some of the information and something about their way of living, about their settlement pattern and their other things. And this Paleolithic period has been divided to two phases, that is the Upper Paleolithic age and the Lower Paleolithic age. There is not much difference between the two. That is a periodization of Paleolithic period and development of tools during this period. Large variety of tools for different purposes. They used variety of tools made of stone, and and for a specific purpose, a separate tool was used. For digging, they used one type of tool, and for cutting they used another type of weapon. So for different purposes they developed different types of weapons, like your axes, your sickles, the and your harpoons, so panta, ityadi ityadi. So habitation and way of life. From Homo erectus, they we know that they use the use of fire and building dwelling houses and caves. From Homo erectus period, man knew the use of fire. Fire ব্যবহার বা নিয়ার ব্যবহার man came to know, and it is proved. We have also certain evidences that it is proved by the presence of hearths. Hearths means oven. So we have some kind of evidences like the presence of hearths and presence of Hello, hello. What happened? Hello, students. Hello. Stage only the host. You are in the show. Can see and hear you. Hello. আচ্ছা, ঠিক আছে। So they were domesticated various types of animals. Animals were separated from their natural habitat and provided shelter and food. So most of the domesticated animals were herd animals. Animals means those who live in one place. A large number of animals live in one place. ଯେମିତି ଗୋରୁ ଗାଈ ମେଣ୍ଢା ଏଗୁଡ଼ା ହେଲା herd animals. Dog was probably the first animal to be tamed and domesticated. Dog, a very faithful animal of human being, who gives company in all hours, in all situations. That was probably the first one to be tamed and domesticated. It helped in tracking and hunting animals. Tracking and hunting animals. Pig, donkeys, and camels were also domesticated. Domestication of a horse was the major breakthrough which completely changed the socio-economic and political scenario. Horse was very useful for human being as it has certain advantages, and it completely changed the socio-economic and political scenario. Reindeer, sheep, goats, cattle, pig, horses, etc. were the animals which the people which the primitives domesticated. Pastoral nomads. Different regions uh, mm, which provided pastoral living, that is Mesopotamia, Syria, Palestine, and Arabia. So they moved from place to place, and they had a certain routes, or they used to various routes, and, and their life depended on uh, breeding of herd animals and migratory character of life. They had to move from one place to another because they were required to lead a nomadic life. So ବୁଝିକି ନାଇଁ କେହି କିଛି କହୁନାହାନ୍ତି କଣ ତାଙ୍କର ରେକର୍ଡିଂ କରୁଛନ୍ତି ନା କଣ? Everyone can see and hear you ଲେଖୁଛି ତ? The life was not sophisticated, and they had the primitive society. They were barbaric as the Mongols and the Huns. Family was the basic unit which consisted of the male, that is husband, wife, and children. Matrimonial relations were governed by customary laws in different forms. There were certain customs and customary laws that govern the matrimonial relations, marriages, I mean. And monogamy was dominant. Monogamy means the practice of having one wife, that is monogamy. But polygamy means having more than one wife, and polyandry. Polyandry is a practice where a woman has more than one husband. So both polygamy and polyandry were prevalent, and exchange system prevailed. Exchange system means the whatever one commodity is exchanged for another, and the lack of self-sufficiency. That means they could not have achieved the self-sufficiency, as we see later that each village was a self-sufficient village in every respect. Then we have to move to a very important phase, that is transition to agriculture. So agriculture was the mainstay of the people as it is now. The most important event is the discovery of agriculture. Hunting and gathering became more regulated and specialized. So as people put much emphasis on agriculture. So, hunting and gathering were driven to backseat. A better knowledge of available wild plants and animals was a precondition for the beginning of agriculture. So when they started agriculture, before that they had a detailed knowledge about the plants and animals around them. Use of more efficient tools and other evidences indicate that people all over the world were exploring newer ways of acquiring food. So not only in one place, but evidences show that people all over the world were trying to have newer sources of food. Generally, archaeologists have associated the beginning of agriculture with a new stage of cultural evolution, that is the Neolithic period. It's known as a cultural revolution period, Neolithic period. By about 8000 BC, substantial sections of the world had given up hunting, gathering, and were pursuing farming and pastoral activities. By 8000 BC, many people, substantial sections of the world had given up hunting, gathering. Hunting, gathering was uh, given up and were pursuing farming and pastoral activities, which, which provided a better sustainable life. Theoretical approaches for understanding transition. So the transition the man had from hunter, hunting gathering stage to agriculture, there are certain theoretical approaches regarding them, and we let us understand, analyze the theoretical approaches for a better understanding of the transition. So, several theories have been advanced for understanding the transition to agriculture. Agriculture is not a lucky accident of nature, nor it is the work of any single genius human being. So, different factors were responsible for that, and we have the theories like a climatic stress model, the Oasis theory culture model, which is known as Oasis theory culture model. Climatic stress model. It is an approach to know, to understand the transition from hunting gathering to agriculture. And one such a theoretical approach is a climatic stress model, the Oasis theory culture model. It was propounded as early as 1908 and was popularized by Gordon Child, who provided the term Neolithic Revolution to convey the overall significance of the trans- transition. The theories, according to this theory, or Child states that, or the theory states that farming began in some part of Southwest Asia, that is Fertile Crescent, due to severe climatic changes. It was due to severe climatic changes farming began in some parts of Southwest Asia, according to the theory propounded by Gordon Child. Oases were formed where humans, animals, and plants got concentrated. Oasis means say, water bodies amidst the desert condition is known as oases. Oases were formed where humans, animals, and plants got concentrated because none of them can live without water. So, such close habitation encouraged the process of domestication. When animals, plants, and humans they lived side by side, that there developed some sort of interaction between animals and humans, and that accelerated the process of domestication. The Oasis theory states that beginning of agriculture didn't take place on a worldwide scale. Oasis theory states that beginning of agriculture did not happen simultaneously all over the world. So from this region, the idea of cultivation spread to other regions. That means West Asia, according to Gordon Child, was the original place where agriculture first started. And from this place, it spilled over to different other parts of the world. Yet, the theory has been criticized. The oasis theory has been challenged by Robert Braidwood. There is no evidence for intense desiccation. So the Robert Braidwood challenges on the basis that there is no such evidence for intense desiccation. Desiccation ମାନେ dry ହେଇଯିବା ତାକୁ କହନ୍ତି desiccation. So there is no evidence, no proof with us to support or to accept this oasis theory. According to him, farming began in nuclear zones. That is, what is a nuclear zone? Now, that is the area that had plenty of animal and plant species, which is called nuclear zone. So, farming began in nuclear zones. Early agriculturists could have been fishermen. It is surmised that fishing rather than hunting predisposed people to agriculture. That means fishermen were in a better position to adapt to agriculture than the hunting than the hunters. The leisure time that fishing provided would have encouraged them to exploit the neighboring regions for plants. So fishermen must have leisure time and they could have utilized that leisure time to exploit the neighboring regions for plants. That means they had more leisure time and they used that leisure time judiciously to exploit or to explore the neighboring regions for plants. Then we have another model, that is the demographic model. So some scholars say that agriculture could have taken place if there is sufficient stimulus in the form of pressure or tension. If there is pressure or tension, it could have stimulated or it could have acted as a catalyst for the development of agriculture. Lewis Binford, 1968, formulated this method. Increase in population compelled the people to resort to agriculture. That means increase in population. So if population increased, there came the necessity, tension arose as so many people were to be fed, and the hunting gathering was not convenient to provide food to so many people as population increased in leaps and bounds, and that created tension which prompted men to resort to or to think of other ways and means so that they can provide the adequate food and nourishment to the increased or surplus population. David Harris, 1969, has also suggested that agriculture was the result of an imbalance between the population and resources. According to this scholar David Harris, so agriculture was the result of an imbalance between population and resources. So when there was imbalance between population and resources, then it might have given rise to agriculture. People might have resorted to a newer source of food, that is agriculture. So the mm, Valley of Mexico, that is the basic weakness is evidence. The evidence ହେଉଛି the Valley of Mexicoରେ ଆମର ଏଇ ଜିନିଷଟା we can find this evidence in Valley of Mexico. Another model is the systems model. Along with Binford, along with Binford, along with Binford and Harris, Kent Flannery has also adopted a gradualist approach to explain the transition from hunting and gathering to agriculture. He has also given a theory. It stressed the continuities rather than the contrast between hunting, gathering, and agriculture. They explained transition in systemic terms. In systemic terms means in terms of analysis, in terms of analyzing the interaction of environmental, demographic, and cultural variables. So they emphasized on continuities. That means transition in systematic terms means in terms of analyzing the interaction of environmental, demographic, and cultural variables. All were responsible, that is, environment, demography, and culture. So, hypothesis of Flannery is based on three assumptions that the hunting gathering population had increased before food production. That means population had increased, that is the demographic, and that the food production began in the marginal areas, that's the area that were not well provided for by nature. For example, the mountain zones of Iraq, Iran, and Turkey, and the woodland zones of Palestine. That means the environment here, and that there were many centers of food production from the beginning. From the beginning, many centers of food production. Kent Flannery used the systems theory to explain the transition in the Zagros Mountains and southern upland of Mexico. This systems theory has been applied to explain the transition in Zagros Mountains and southern upland of Mexico. He says that the seasonal movements of hunter-gatherers enabled them to experience flora and fauna of different zones. Seasonal movements of hunter-gatherers. We know that hunters and gatherers had to move from place to place in search of food. That means if from a particular place the food is exhausted, then they are compelled to move to another place. So during their seasonal movements, whenever they moved from one place to another in search of newer areas where they could find food, the seasonal movements of hunters and gatherers enabled them to experience flora and fauna of different zones. Seasonal movement means if they moved during rainy season from one place to another, then they may find the new types of plants and fruit-bearing trees in the region. If they move during the summer season or during the spring, from one place to another region, then in the new region they may find some kind of a new flora and fauna. That means they moved from place to place, and that is seasonal movement. And during this short movement, they came across different types of flora and fauna. Different types of flora means plant and fauna means animals. So different types of plants and animals, so they grow in different seasons at different places, and this knowledge they gathered during their seasonal migration from one place to another in search of food. So, in southern uplands of Mexico, due to the principle of negative feedback, that is a principle operating in nature that different plants available in different areas ripened at different times. This is called negative feedback. This is a term you must understand what is negative feedback. Negative feedback is a principle operating in nature. Nature has its own principle. So there is a principle in nature by which different plants available in different areas ripened at different times. Different plants available in different area, they ripen at different times. For example, jackfruit and mango. We do not find a ripe mango in rainy season, or we do not find jackfruit in any season other than the summer season. So there are certain period time during which a particular plant or fruit gets ripened, and this is called the this principle which operates in nature automatically. This principle is known as negative feedback, and people used this in southern uplands of Mexico. uh, the advantage of negative feedback. The hunter-gatherers scheduled their hunting gathering strategies accordingly. So when they knew the time when the fruits would ripe, they fixed their migration accordingly. So they knew that in summer there we can get we do get a lot of mango or jackfruit. So let us move to that particular region during summer or just before summer, so that by the time summer arrived there, we would be there to utilize or uh, to uh, to have those ripened fruits to our advantage. The hunter-gatherers schedule their time accordingly. Availability of different plants and animals regulated the movement and size of groups. Availability of different plants and animals. It is not that very big groups will move from one place to another. No, they they knew how many people or what should be the size of the group according to the availability of different plants and animals. So which would be sufficient to for their sustenance. So availability of different plants and animals determined or regulated the movement and size of groups. They could have widened the area in which a particular plant grew, and Zagros Mountain, where we find there is wheat is grown. Then upland in Mexico, we find plenty of maize. Such plants had a tendency to outgrow other plants. They disturbed the equilibrium. These plants disturbed the equilibrium and provided positive feedback. Here we have discussed what is negative feedback, and here we come across another important term, that is positive feedback. Positive feedback, what is positive feedback? Now there are certain plants which have a tendency to outgrow other plants and thereby disturbing the equilibrium, so that equilibrium would be disturbed, which is known as a positive feedback. They could, that means they could be grown at different times of the years. So this positive, according to the positive feedback, these certain plants which have a tendency to outgrow other plants, they could be grown at different times of the year. So there is no need of limiting a particular time for these plants, because they have a tendency to outgrow others, and they had the potentiality to disturb the equilibrium. Hence, the old pattern of existence of hunter-gatherers that demanded seasonal movements was gradually replaced by a subsistence pattern, living pattern based on prolonged stay and food production. So when they became aware of the positive feedback, positive feedback means certain plants could be grown throughout the year. Now there was a gradual change in the living pattern of hunter gatherers, and that which demanded seasonal movements. They no longer were required to move to other places in the with the onset of different seasons. Now the practice was gradually replaced by a subsistence pattern that is based on prolonged stay. They could stay for a period much more for a longer time than they usually used to stay, and food production. So with the application of with the application of positive feedback, now the lifestyle of hunter gatherers began to change. then domestication of plants and animals, the transformation of hunter-gatherers to farmers is generally regarded as a remarkable achievement. No doubt it is a very big achievement that witnessed the transformation of hunter-gatherers to farmers and which reduced hunting to a ritual activity. So now people started giving up hunting and it was limited to ritual hunting. That means whenever there was a necessity for any ritual or rites, people used to go to hunting. Otherwise, it was generally given up. So, because people knew how to cultivate crops and how to prepare food, that is the farming, art of farming was known to the people. The prolonged stay in a particular place and the storage of the produce gradually transformed the life of the people. People could stay for a longer time at a particular place because of the cultivation of crops, and also they it gradually transformed the life of the and also the storage of the produce. People could learn the art of storing grains. If grain was stored, then there would be no problem, there would be no food problem, and thereby they could stay at a particular place for a longer time, and this transformed the life of the people. A domesticated animal is one that people also used to domestication of animals. And what is a domesticated animal? A domesticated animal is one that is bred in captivity for the purpose of economic gain to a human community that maintains complete mastery over its breeding, its territory, and food supply. That means when man domesticated animals, it had certain purposes, that is economic gain being the chief purpose, and man controlled everything. Breeding, the food supply and territory, everything was controlled by human being. So during hunting, they could have realized that they could tame certain animals when the young ones of the animals they hunted, when abandoned, attached themselves to people. This was due to imprinting. This is a very interesting story, interesting fact, not story. It is very interesting fact that at the time of hunting, it so happens that sometimes the adult animal is killed and the young one, which is an infant, is left abandoned. And there you must have seen in TV channels like Geographic, National Geography, or other where animals are seen, hunting scenes are displayed on the TV screen. That whenever a mother is killed and the infant is left abandoned, there it has there we have seen that even a tiger, ferocious tiger, even a terrible lion does not kill a young goat, a young wildebeest, or a young that deer, etc. That, and what happens then? They tow or they follow a lion and play with it without knowing that the lion is a deadly one and it had killed its mother or its relatives. So this feeling. So they in the infant in its state of infancy, the animals had a tendency to follow the immediate available living being, and this process is known as imprinting. This is due to imprinting. So when leave the case of the tigers and lions, when human being killed animals, then their young ones in infant stage, they they had the feeling of imprinting or quality of imprinting, that is tendency of animals. What is imprinting? This is the tendency of animals to follow the first living being during an impressionistic period in their infancy. If we can also experiment this one, let us, if you kill some animal and there is the infant is with it, then infant will follow us due to imprinting. Imprinting means the tendency of animals to follow the first living being during an impressionistic period in their infancy. So while hunting, men have come across in so come across so many infants left abandoned, either due to the death of their mothers or due to their escape. So the infants followed human beings, and human beings tended them, brought them to their habitat, and they could gather the knowledge that certain animals could be tamed and domesticated. This was the secrecy when man started domesticating animals and early agricultural sites. Necessity compelled communities to tap the potentiality inherent in certain plants and animals in such a manner that they became useful to them on a sustainable basis. It is not that it is the necessity which compelled human beings to tap the potentiality inherent in certain plants and animals in such a manner that they became useful to them on a sustainable basis. That means the resources would not be exhausted. They would provide the food continuously and without interruption. This is known as that is sustainable basis. So social processes as density of population and changing ecological condition also were responsible for the development of agriculture. Life of people in West Asia was affected by climatic fluctuation. Climatic fluctuation means there is the climate is unpredictable. Whatever the climate would be the next day, no one can say. So climatic fluctuation, sometimes here we have erratic monsoons. If monsoon plays truant, then there may be failure of crops in certain areas, and this has happened a number of times, and people have suffered a lot because of the drought due to non-arrival of monsoon in time. So social forces such as the density of population and changing ecological condition have affected the production system. And by 11,000 BC, in Jordanian Valley, had developed a broad subsistence base. Certain areas there which provide a broad subsistence base, and the people how um, used to people used to weapons like access sickles, harpoons, and weapons also. Evidence from Anatolia, that Europe, and America, Mesopotamia, and China, rainfall spread of forests, and at Anatolia, that is in Catalhuku. So these are the various places where the early agricultural sites have been found by the archaeologists and other scientists. So Neolithic Revolution. Neolithic Revolution means, here we say Neolithic Revolution. We do not we say Paleolithic period or Mesolithic period or Neolithic period also. But why Neolithic Revolution? When we talk of revolution, we say that revolution takes place bringing in its trail a complete detachment with the past. Then only we say a revolution took place. Take the case of French Revolution. In French Revolution, what did we find? We find that there was a complete change. That is, before French Revolution, there was a monarchy, and after that, the people were imbued with the democratic ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity. So, likewise, there is industrial revolution. It is also called a revolution because before a revolution there was a small scale production, and it was produced manually with a small capital, and that too in a small workshop. Now, when the industrial revolution came, many things changed. Large scale production became possible, or mass production became possible. Big factories came into being. Thousands of workers worked in the factory, and everything was changed. The life was changed beyond recognition. Slums developed, and there was the housing problem, the water problem, electricity problem. There were other uh, mm, pestilences and so many problems of administration and so things. Crimes developed with that. So when there is a complete change from the earlier system, then only we say a revolution took place. So, in that aspect, in what way Neolithic revolution? Why should we call it a Neolithic revolution? Because Neolithic revolution, during this period, there was a complete change in the pattern of life of human being. That means, instead of being a nomad, man settled in one place and led a sedentary life. The concept of Neolithic was introduced by John Lubbock in 1865, and the Neolithic Revolution, that is V. Gordon Child, uh, um, in his book Man Makes Himself, published in 1936, he has referred to the Neolithic Revolution. That means changes, and because of the Neolithic Revolution, we have far-reaching changes. The changes which man had not imagined so far. That is, the changes in dietary pattern, Dietary pattern means the food we take in. It's called dietary pattern, and people now increasingly dependent on the vegetarian food because whatever they produced that became the staple food instead of going into jungle in search of gathering in search of hunting and gathering fruits. And we have settlement pattern that a sedentary way of life came into being. People gave up the nomadic life, and they lived in villages and used to different new tools which would be useful in farming. And there came into being pottery making and weaving, then exchange and use of metals. Exchange system became necessary, and use of metals were used for the exchange system, and social structure also changed accordingly. It was affected very greatly, and there was a family system evolved. There was also family, but here family, so many families lived together in what came to be known as villages. Pottery making, spinning, weaving, and these are the work became the assignments of women. Changes in house building pattern and the belief system also changed accordingly. People began to worship different gods and goddesses, mother goddess being the chief one. Prayers, sacrifices, rites, etc. And people came to have belief in magic and rituals, and also the grave goods. Then implications for the world, and we have sources study origin of man. How are humans different from animals? Human beings are different from animals, is a very very clear. So uh, how can say that human beings are different from animals in so many ways? In a living pattern, in a dietary system, in a, your the intellectual level, and other things. And the deaf and dumb animals, uh, human being is totally different from animals. And various invention of tools took place during this period, and the discovery of fire was another asset for the human civilization, and uh, invention of um, courts and also kingship exchange system. So all these things developed because of the new pattern of life that was heralded by the advent of Neolithic Revolution. So in a haste, we have to cover this new topic, and the assignment was just given to me only in yesterday. So I doubt whether I am still in doubt whether my voice is audible to you or not. And this is nothing but a very good information. The whole topic veers around the fact that it gives us a very good insight into under what circumstances the human being from the primitive stage reached this modern stage, um, uh, after having so many vicissitudes, ups and downs throughout the existence of human life, and how it has developed step by step at different stages, fighting the forces of nature and against all odds, like the wildlife's inhospitable condition in jungle and other difficulties. And gradually, how the man picks up a organized, unorganized life and from nomads moving from place to place in search of food and in search of food, began to or man begins to learn the art of producing food and finally uh, after having used blunt weapons in Paleolithic period, Mesolithic period is marked by characterized by use of small size microliths, and during the new stone period the people used polished stone weapons, and during the with the knowledge of metal uh, items were used to, and gradually man learned every aspect of life gradually, the exchange system and the division of labor and other things that man people were organized in a family and then in a village, then there developed kingship in a later periods. We will discuss when we will go to the other chapters of history. And the most important fact is the Neolithic Revolution, which brought about to a radical change in the life of human being, and so many things appeared which were earlier unknown to human being, and the sedentary life began, and man got ample time to think of other means to mm, expedite or to facilitate a comfortable life in the future. So these are the things that we have discussed in nutshell, and I do not think how far you have understood it or not. And it is now time for you. If you have any doubts, so then feel free to ask me so that I can try my best to clarify your doubts. So now over to Dr. Nakhat Sain, Madam, for necessary action at her end. ऐसा मोबाइल
Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable information, because the our first block on ancient and medieval societies, the all the chapters are very interesting, and those chapters we have left that we will continue on next class. So thank you so much, all the learners. Very soon we will meet with the second block of MHI 1. With this, I am closing this class. Once again, thank you so much.